Round of applause. So those of you who don't know yet, I'm Aron A. I live in Deerfield, and I am delighted to be here today. I, however, do use notes. So first of all, thank you everybody for coming today, all of you, including the people who are hanging out over there. I hope that all of you are here to listen to us with peaceful intent. I want to say that the heart of this crowd are people from Deerfield, Nottingham, and Candia who were inspired to stand up for support of Black lives. Many hearts and hands made this event happen today, and I am grateful for each and every one of you, and I've enjoyed our deepening friendships through this work. Many of you are here in support of your friends who live here and to support Black Lives Matter. I am particularly grateful to the leadership of the Black Lives Matter chapters who made this trip to be with us, and that's a trip of more than distance. Though this is not a Black Lives Matter event, we support their organization and their goals. They are the experts on what it means to be Black and brown, and they have the most at stake in how we address these issues. We cannot be effective in bringing about meaningful change if we do not listen to what they want us to know. Some of you are here, maybe not right here, because you think this is a BLM event and you believe that this organization exists to foster terror, and you are afraid of what we intend to do in this place that you love. I know from engaging with some of you that we have very different sources of information on this topic, and that you are unlikely to leave today profoundly changed by what you've heard us say. But I will encourage you to, in your studies, look at the State Department research, which says that almost all of the over 7,000 rallies that happened this year were peaceful. And of the few that were not, many of those were instigated by outside agitators from the right. Those people believed, I believe, they were protecting their communities. But the thing that breaks my heart is that we are part of the same community. Many of you grew up together. Your kids go to school together. We talk to each other as we walk down the roads on our socially distanced, masked events. We talk about our dogs when we meet at the transfer station. We might disagree on what the issues are and how they should be approached, how we can address them, but most people I know want the world to be fair. And the rest is a discussion about what that means and how to get there. So, as mentioned, we are here today because one of our elected state representatives, James Spillane, thought it funny, so he says, to post on Facebook that Black Lives Matter signs are an invitation to burn and loot the homes that display them. In response to this post, residents of the district decided that maybe we ought to get around to putting some of those signs up, and within a few weeks, 300 have been ordered and distributed to homes across Deerfield, Nottingham, Candia, and many of our neighboring towns. In the process, Jordan says, well, do you think you'll have a rally? And I went, oh, there's an idea. So, I would like to thank Mr. Spillane for getting us off our butts to stand up for our values. And I wouldn't mind if he lost the election next month, because I don't think that elected officials should encourage violence against their constituents. But he is not the main point. The main point is that he reminded us that Black lives matter. And it needs saying. And it needs saying until we no longer see the consistent and heartbreaking disparities by race across housing, education, health, and yes, patterns of police violence. And he reminded us that this work needs to happen here, in our majority white places, and that it is essential that we white people are part of these changes. When we started to organize this rally, some people asked if this would be a rally that we would be calling to defund the police. At the time, I kind of dodged the issue and said, well, we're not naming it as an issue, but I don't know what signs people would bring. Now I need to tell you what I really think. I know that there is reliable evidence of the disproportional use of force against Black and brown people by officers of the law. that this inequity emerges in part from sometimes unconscious bias and sometimes deliberate prejudice, that this inequity leads to low-grade anxiety at best and extrajudicial killings at worst. The most urgent and heartbreaking statistic is that black and brown suspects are 3 times more likely to be killed by cops than white suspects. 3 times. Just yesterday, 10 miles from here, a man fired shots in a shopping center parking lot. And he stood there waving the gun for 2 hours before he was taken into custody. I expect I'm not the only person who thought that might have had a different outcome if he had not been. Many of you do acknowledge that there is a problem, but believe that it's attributable to a few bad apples. Against this, I will push back. There are bad apples who behave egregiously, but then these people are frequently protected by their system, by a series of laws and practices that often let them go free and sometimes even keep their jobs. Because of this, the people most harmed by this behavior have called for a re-examination of how we manage the police function. Some say that it needs to be dismantled completely, that it started with the slave patrols of the South and still carries that poison in its DNA. Some say that we have put too many responsibilities in the job, asking officers to be enforcers, social workers, and de-escalation experts, and that what we need to do is to reorganize these tasks, including moving the money that pays for them to be done. Sometimes this is called defunding the police, sometimes rearranging the role of police, sometimes other things. The names and even the details matter less to me than knowing that something must change and setting about looking what that needs to be. As it happens, the Republican governor of this state agrees with me, saying that there is always room to improve, grow, and adapt in this area. And he adopted every recommendation made by his recent Commission on Law Enforcement Accountability, Community, and Transparency Commission, the Act. After 60 days, this committee, which included representatives from the policing community and, they agreed to the following, they came up with the following recommendations to which they unanimously agreed. Requiring training to maintain officer certification, a review of that training, including for school resource officers, establishing improved mechanisms to report and investigate policemen's conduct, collecting and making publicly available all demographic data on arrests, citations, and motor and vehicle and subject stops, regardless of how they ended. Support community policing so that the people of the community and the people paid to protect them have personal relationships. And hire more officers from minority communities. Some of this, and some of what you may have heard Jordan say earlier, just the simple phrase that New Hampshire is not innocent, may be hard for you to hear. Maybe you don't see things quite as he does. Maybe you think he's well-intentioned but mistaken. Some of you may think or may know people who think that if you are kind and you strive to treat everyone the same and not notice race, that means you're not a racist. And it might be that you are not a racist, but that doesn't mean that you don't sometimes do racist things. Racism in its most important manifestation is behavior. You might not notice that your company has a lot of people of color in low-wage positions, but the leadership is just about all white. Or you might think that your friend really tired of strangers trying to touch her hair, just oversensitive. And you might not know that the apartment that you just rented was first applied for by a person who had better credit history than you did, but whose name was Jamal. So he was never even told it was available. And you might think that if the cops harassed or shot someone, there must have been some reason, even if they were just selling cigarettes on the street, or playing with a toy gun in the park, or eating ice cream in their living room, or asleep in an apartment at an address someone got wrong on a warrant. Okay, you might then think or say, but not here. How can New Hampshire be racist? where there are hardly any people of color. First, and this is important, we are not all white in any place in New Hampshire. And when we say so, we erase the people of color of here, and that feels bad. Second, why are we almost all white here? New Hampshire's a lovely place to live. Fairly cheap relative to some of the places we're near. There's jobs, usually. What forces might keep people away? Could it be the steady and worsening racial harassment a biracial child has received from their classmates since 2016? Or how the black husband of one of my friends was followed down a street. Or how the black husband of one of my friends was followed down the street and into a store by an officer who then called into the sales clerk to find out if everything was okay. Or the teacher on the coast who didn't think there was a problem that students had sent the lyrics, KKK, kill the blacks, to the tune of Jingle Bells as a school assignment. There are others, but I've just been told we need to push this a little faster. But I will talk about the dread that might enter your heart if you hear that white supremacist flyers have gone up in the coastal region again. Or if you hear about your friend whose mother was questioned outside her house why she was there when she came home from work last night in her majority white neighborhood. Or the school down the road from here that took 3 years to remove a Confederate flag from the mural. All right, you might say. But what can I do if I'm white? To start, you can open your eyes for information, your ears to listen to others when they tell you their experiences, and your heart to believe them. Believe that we must say that Black Lives Matter until we all together behave as if this is true. Then you can tell your white friends what you are learning. You can challenge people you love, which is much harder than challenging people who you don't like, when they express opinions that make you squirm using facts that you know are inaccurate or incomplete. You can write to the governor and say, love those recommendations, make sure you implement them. And you can attend planning meetings when you hear people say, well, we can't have affordable housing here because, and this is a quote, we don't want our town to look like Nashua or Manchester. While you're at it, notice your own fears and assumptions and get to the other side of them. Challenge yourself when you notice having a biased reaction to something. Be willing to be uncomfortable as you learn things about yourself that you would rather not know. When your friends or your acquaintances of color tell you that you have done something that requires correction, thank them for their time because that took effort, believe them, and move on. All right. This reflection and correction process, by the way, is endless. I've been at it for a long time, and if I don't make one really colossal, brilliant mistake a year, I figure I'm not doing it right. Once you decide you want to know and take action, opportunities will come to you. They will tumble at your door. Accept them, take risks, make mistakes, try again. We can do better. Thank you.